All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we got a special guest, Will Sawyer. Will, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So I always like to start these out kind of with a little backstory, how you got into real estate, maybe what you did before. So let's hear what you got.
Well, real estate's the only adult job I've ever had. I went to college in Spartanburg, about 45 minutes down the road, and I was a pre-med student and went all 4 years pre-med. Took the MCAT, started my application to med school, and realized I was probably not going to get into med school. Biochemistry class, that was fall semester senior year. I flunked my first two tests, and then that was kind of like the moment where I was like, all right, I need to think about doing other stuff. And I have an uncle who's in real estate in Columbia, and he was like, come spend a day with me. So I went and spent the day with him. We had an inspection. We spent some time at the office. We went to a closing, and it was like this really nice breath of fresh air, spending the day with a realtor versus spending the day with a physician. I shadowed multiple types of physicians and surgeons, and every one of them was like, Will, you really need to think about what you're doing. In addition to the biochemistry moment, I was following one of my dad's buddies around who's a general surgeon in Spartanburg, and we're walking fast to the clinic. He's early 60s, just hustling. Started at 6 a.m., and this is probably 3 p.m. at this point. And we're going room to room, and he stops me, looks back at me, and he's like, why the hell do you want to be a surgeon? And I was like, well, I want to help people and, be a significant member of society, whatever the BS answer I could come up with. And he's like, son, you better think long and hard about that. If I would have put the amount of effort and time into something like business that I've put into being a good surgeon, I'd be retired. And I was like, okay. And on the other hand, I say all that to say, coming back to Reggie had nothing but good things to say about his job. He freaking loves being a realtor. And I was like, God, this is like so nice to actually hear someone and spend time with someone who actually enjoys their job. So I got my real estate license senior year at nighttime after class. And that went on for 2 months, and was licensed in May of 2018 and moved to Greenville in June of 2018.
Awesome. So were you living in Spartanburg prior to moving to Greenville?
Yeah, I was in college, but before that, I'm from a small town in South Carolina called Saluda.
Okay.
There's 3,000 people there, 20,000 in the county. It's fence lines and cows. That's all that you see there.
So you got licensed in 2018. Did you start out with the brokerage you're at now currently, or what kind of?
I did, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you've been there a while.
Yep.
And how would you describe the current real estate market in Greenville today? Is it a buyer or seller's market?
Definitely a seller's market.
Okay.
Yeah. Compared to 2022, though, it's not as much of a seller's market. We're at 3.3 months of inventory as of the end of last year, and as of January, we're at 3.5 months of inventory. So to be balanced, you got to start getting in that 5 to 6 month range, and we're a little bit short of that. But the overall market, last year, for the first time in 30 years, it was the lowest number of home sales across the nation. But Greenville's closed sales are up about 7%.
Oh, wow.
So our market, I wouldn't say it's insulated from the rest of the country, but, we're in a hotbed of relocations. There's a net migration to the southeast, and Greenville's, experiencing a lot of that.
What do you think is causing Greenville to be a hot spot for relocations?
Well, you live here, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, for many reasons, Greenville is one of the most desirable places in the southeast.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty affordable cost of living. Weather's good. And, this is comparing places like California or New York or Chicago area or Florida now, as insurance rates and taxes have gone up so much in Florida. So it's no surprise that Greenville's, growing like it is.
Yeah, we see a bunch of people that have went from like either New York or New Jersey to Florida, and now they're coming back up because of property taxes, how hot it is constantly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my clients either come from the Northeast or from Florida.
Yeah.
Most of the clients that live in Florida came from the Northeast first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we see that all the time. How's the demand for housing changed since the pandemic, and where do you see it going in the next few years with the election?
The demand for housing certainly has changed in Greenville. We're in a seller's market with just over 3 months supply of inventory. So, if no other listing were to come to the market, every house on the market would be absorbed in the next 3 or so months. That's what that means. But, we have, I think, a good complement with new construction. A lot of markets across the country don't have new construction. New construction makes up about 40 to 45% of our inventory at any given point. So, people that are coming from the Northeast, and then in general other parts of the country where builders aren't building, they have literally no inventory, and they probably have 2 months supply of inventory. And those are the markets where you're seeing not a lot of sales happen. Because you don't have this supplement of new construction. And as 80% of people who have a mortgage under 5%, you're not seeing a lot of people move unless they have to, right? So a lot of the people that have to move are people that are relocating for family, that have to move for work, that are retiring, that don't want to live where they have lived for the last 30 years because, well, they're not working anymore. So the demand for housing, I think, is strong now. It's going to stay strong. I do think more homes are going to come to the market because I think our interest rate environment is kind of settled in. As long as the economy is expected to do well, and we'll see how that plays out, I don't think rates are going to change too much. If the economy were to, turn down for the worse, well, we might see interest rates come down a little bit to help stimulate things, but I don't think interest rates are going to change, significantly in the next several years.
Yeah. Are you seeing people lean more towards new construction right now since you can get that interest buy down, or are you seeing people looking for pre-existing built houses?
It's totally personal preference.
Yeah.
I don't know the ratio, but if I had to guess, I probably sell more resale homes.
Okay.
Because there are more resale homes in our market. One, not everybody wants to live in a new construction community, but the value proposition that builders give you, paying your closing costs, giving you a fixed discounted interest rate, I mean, that's a good value proposition. You just, you have to be okay with living in that type of community.
Absolutely. And live around other construction going on around you too as well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Are there any like neighborhoods in the area that really stand out to you that you just really enjoy?
What price point?
Let's say in the $500,000 price point.
Any particular? Is it new construction? Is it resale?
New construction, resale, whatever your preference is.
I think Arden Woods.
Here, let me rephrase it. If you were buying a house for yourself, what neighborhood would you choose?
Okay. That's a funny question. I've seen so many houses and I've walked through so many houses. A house is a house to me.
Yeah.
Of course, when my wife and I start looking for a house, that'll probably change because, you have this emotional connection to your
Absolutely.
home. If I were to move somewhere, the few places that I would look, just personally would be downtown. It'd be on the east side of town. I used to live in Travelers Rest. So, I like Travelers Rest a lot. Mm-hmm. I like kind of that quaint small town feel. Currently we live in like the Simpsonville area, the northern part of Simpsonville, Five Forks, Woodruff Road area, 14. That's kind of like from an outsider's view, that's kind of an underrated area in my opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously Greenville people know Highway 14, Raper Mountain Road. It's a nice area, but I don't think it gets a lot of press. I think you see a lot of Simpsonville, a lot of Greer.
Yeah.
Just because those areas are having a lot of development right now.
What do you think is underrated about the Five Forks area? Do you think it's just its location and all the easy access to everything around you?
Well, so it's already been developed a lot,
Yeah,
right? So there's no reason for it to be newsworthy.
yeah,
A lot of those neighborhoods already have mature trees. A lot of it was built in the late 20th century. Some of it was built between 2000 and 2010, but you don't see a lot of new construction there unless it's kind of infill or one-off properties. Not a lot of neighborhood developments right now, but it's desirable because it's close to everything.
yeah,
Close to the airport, close to Lake Robinson, close to the interstate, close to downtown, close to Trader Joe's, close to Whole Foods,
yeah.
close to everything.
What are some of the biggest mistakes buyers make when looking for a home?
Not hiring me.
Yeah,
No, I'm just playing. Biggest mistakes. They probably, they first don't get pre-approved. I have helped buyers make that mistake before, and I've seen buyers make that mistake before. I'm working with someone right now who fell in love with the house but didn't have a pre-approval and couldn't get it in time, and the house went under contract, and now they're all sad.
oh no.
Yeah. But, I didn't know them at that point.
Yeah.
And then when they kind of had this realization, that's when the realtor that they were working with connected me with them. But, it's a process. And, if you work with us, you buy into our process. And the first step in that process, other than hiring me, is getting your pre-approval or providing a proof of funds, because we got to know what ballpark you're playing in. And after that, then we need to sit down, and if you're married, me, you, and your spouse need to sit down and talk about what's important to you and why that's important, because a lot of these people don't even have these conversations
Yeah.
until they're sitting down with me, and I can ask them the questions in a certain way to get these answers out of them and discover why that's actually important to them. Because, I don't know. I think it's just important to do that.
Absolutely. What advice would you give somebody looking to buy their first rental property? Do you do anything on the investment side?
Yeah, I have a couple rentals under contract on my third right now.
Awesome. That's something I'm looking to get into this year.
Let's do it.
Yeah, man.
So, and advice. First, you got to know what you want to buy, because if you come to me and say, "Hey, I want to buy a rental," and you don't tell me what you want, you obviously haven't done your own due diligence.
Yep.
So, unless you can tell me what you want, then I don't think you're that serious, because everybody wants to own rental property. But first, I got to know why you want to own rental property. If you're a business owner, real estate's a great investment. If you're looking to, live off your cash flow right now, that's going to be really hard because interest rates are high. It's hard to, reach that $200 per door, which is what you hear everybody talk about. Cash flow is tough in our market, especially with prices where they are. I think it's more of a value play for a lot of purchases right now. So you got to be willing to eat it for a few years for that long-term appreciation play.
Awesome. Do you do anything in the commercial sector?
I'm actually doing my first commercial deal now.
Okay.
I've never done a commercial deal, to be honest with you. It's kind of a different ballgame. And I think everybody will tell you that.
So if somebody was coming to the area and they were clients of yours and they're coming from out of state, what are like some local restaurants, fun things to do, cool things to check out that you'd suggest that they...
Yeah, so definitely stay downtown your first trip. It's really going to get you immersed into the city. I recommend that for every client. And for my clients, I recommend that they do a tour that we offer to our clients, which is called Make Greenville Yours. So this tour is done by a gentleman named Mike Cruise. So Mike's lived here for about 35 years. He's a part-time pastor. He's just a cool dude. And what I tell my clients is, instead of y'all driving around trying to figure out where you are, driving to different neighborhoods, not really knowing where the heck you're going, one person's driving, one person's saying, "Hey, look at this," and you can't because you're driving, and y'all start yelling at each other. What Mike will do is sit you in the back of his van. He'll start you downtown, take you through downtown, and then he'll take you throughout the suburbs, the major suburbs of Greenville, tell you about each area, where it was, where it is, where it's going. And what that's going to do is it's going to, one, catalyze your decision on whether or not to move here, right? It's going to give you a lot of clarity on it if you think Greenville's the place for you, because you're actually going to, take what a lot of my clients do is watch my YouTube videos before they come into town. So it's going to take what you have seen on YouTube through a TV screen or on your phone screen, and it's going to make it a little more tangible because you're actually going to see these places in person, and you're going to be able to hear it through the perspective of someone who's lived here for 30 years. And then second, it's going to give you a lot of clarity on where you want to be, because a lot of people kind of have, cast their net pretty wide in the beginning, and then we start to filter down. The tour is going to help you filter that down. And then in addition to that, I always say come into town, have a nice dinner. I always recommend Sobeys, because usually it's within walking distance of their hotel. Also in Daco, that's one of our favorite restaurants. And if it's an occasion between the trees, that's my favorite restaurant in Greenville. And then coffee, of course, you got Methodical Coffee and Coffee Underground. But as far as things to do, a lot of people like to get outside while they're here if they're here for an extended period of time. So I always say go up to Lake Jocassee, Paris Mountain, Table Rock. I think that really highlights the beauty of the upstate.
Absolutely. Lake Jocassee is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful out there. It kind of reminds me of Lake Tahoe a little bit, like a very
never
much
been.
smaller. It's pretty similar, a little bit different, obviously, but, clear water, cold, mountains around.
You got a house on Jocassee yet?
No, absolutely not. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 houses on Jocassee?
No, there's more than that. It's tough to get out there, though.
It was like 3 years ago. I had seen 2-acre lot listed on Jocassee, and they were like just $1 million just for the land.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Insane. So talking about YouTube, you are like the YouTube king. What kind of got you into creating content and kind of, honestly, I think personally paving that path towards YouTube content in the Greenville area?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly other people who started it before me. 2 people I can think of, but kind of the story behind that is I had a good business. I did a lot of agent referrals. I was young. I'm 28 now. A lot of the people that I know weren't really buying houses. So I never really had the luxury of stepping into real estate, calling my friends and seeing who wanted to transact. So, up until that point in my career, I'd spent 2 years on a team. I'd really started this agent referral thing. So from agents or with agents from across the country who had clients wanting to move to Greenville. And it was probably a timing thing. It just kind of worked out that way. I got pretty lucky and started doing 20 to 35 agent referrals per year. And that allowed me to jump off the team that I was on. Long story short, it wasn't a fit anymore. And I didn't have the business I wanted to have. I've always wanted to, if anything, just make myself proud. And prove to myself that I could do it, because I didn't have a lot of confidence as a kid. Never really have been this really confident person, but kind of found my stride with real estate, and I was like, let's see how far this can go. So there's a book that every realtor should read. It's called Shift, and in that, so it was written by the guy who founded our company, Gary Keller, and it basically talks about how to thrive in a down market. And in that book, he talks about how in down markets, people still transact, just not as many people, and you got to get in front of the motivated. And I was like, how the heck can I get in front of people that still want to buy real estate from a 26-year-old chap? And I went to this convention called Family Reunion, which Keller Williams puts on. And met this guy from Delaware called Matt. His name's Matt London. And we were at a dinner that I got invited to and almost didn't go. And this dinner has definitely changed my life. And I met Matt, started talking to him. We both played golf. He was a golf professional, so we kind of chatted about that. And I was like, well, so where's your business come from? And he said, YouTube. And I was like, YouTube? Tell me about that. And he said, yeah, I did like $15 million in sales last year from YouTube. And I was like, what? 15 million just from making videos? And he's like, yeah, go watch my channel. Copy what I did. And I was like, okay. So he introduced me to this lady called Sarah Maslowski in Atlanta. So she's a Atlanta Realtor, northern Atlanta suburbs. It's kind of her area. And she's like one of the OGs in YouTube. And you got Ken Pozek in Orlando, who's by far one of the bigger YouTube agents in the country. One of the bigger teams with Keller Williams is Ken Pozek because of YouTube. So I got into all these people's worlds and basically just mimicked their channels. I would bounce ideas off of them, kind of iterated from them. A lot of what they do is they film themselves, so they'll like be on their iPhone camera or they buy a camera and just film themselves and then send it off to a virtual editor. It's much less expensive that way compared to what I do, but I wanted it to be of quality. And I wanted to be in the community, which we've kind of transitioned that now. But in the beginning, you know, I just was figuring it out. And YouTube has definitely changed my life.
That's awesome.
And my business.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I see it all over the place. And really good content too.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. It's not highlighting you, it's just highlighting the area, what's going on, new updates, city improvements.
Yeah, I mean, at that point in someone's relocation journey, they don't care about real estate.
Yeah.
They care about learning about the place they are thinking about moving to.
Absolutely.
And then just by default, by them watching me tell them about that, well, hopefully they'll use me as their realtor when they decide to move.
100%. I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit because I heard two points that you pointed out about your process. So somebody's relocating here from the area.
Yeah.
Walk me through your process because it sounds like you got it pretty lined out.
And it's just by, I've done it so much.
Yeah.
So most of these people will call me, email me, and we have basically an intake person now who sets up an initial call, has an initial call with them, and then if they need to talk to me, if they're moving within the next 6 months, that's usually kind of the trigger on if they'll talk to me or not. And until they get to that point is when Rob is following up with them at a frequency they prefer. So most people inquire on the website, email us direct, or text me. And then we'll have a call set up. We'll get them set up with Mike because usually these people are coming into town in the next month or 3. And like I said to you, I say exactly that to them. Hey, you need to do this tour with Mike because, you've seen Greenville from a TV screen up to this point, but you really need to see it in person. And it's good if you hear about that from someone who's lived here for 30 plus years. I've lived here for going on 11 years, but I don't have the perspective that Mike does. So I think he offers a unique perspective, seeing Greenville be the textile capital of the world, Greenville and Spartanburg, from going into its depression and then rising out of that into the city that it is now. So they do the tour, and then we meet at the office. And when we meet at the office, we talk about process, we talk about the tour, and what we do is we usually throw some properties up on the screen for them to look at. And then I'll generate a list for them to drive by a list of houses that they want to go and check out, because then that's going to get them off of the interstates. It's going to get them off of those major corridors, and it's going to get them into the communities that they're actually going to be living in. And it's going to get them on the roads that they're actually going to be driving on. And that's going to give them a really much more in-depth feel for the specific town that they think they want to move to. And as they can start doing drive-bys, well, they're going to actually see the types of neighborhoods that they can comfortably afford. And then if, let's just say they're moving in the next 2 months or month, if they want to see something while they're here and they're able to buy it, then we'll go and look at properties. If there's model houses that are open, we'll encourage them to walk through some models if they're looking at new construction. I don't like to displace families. I don't like to displace sellers from their homes to show my client a house if my client's not going to buy it. It takes a lot of energy for someone to show a house, let alone if, let's just say they have kids or a newborn child and they're moving for a reason. Yeah. Well, they're cleaning the house, they're getting the baby ready, they're getting the car ready. Like, they're not just leaving the house.
Yeah.
And it's pretty disrespectful for me to expect them to just open their door for a client from out of state who thinks they want to move to Greenville, but doesn't really know,
Yeah.
you know? And I tell my client that, and usually that's really well received. So in that meeting, before we do that, you know, we'll show them houses. We'll talk about developments that they think they're interested in, pros and cons of each place. Really, you know, kind of complement what they've already learned, and then answer any questions that they have.
Awesome. So if somebody's looking to start that process or want to watch your YouTube videos, tell us how we can find you online.
Yeah. So, you know, you can type in Will Sawyer Realtor, I'm sure, into YouTube, and I'll pop up. The handle is at GVL Real Estate, like Greenville abbreviated, GVL Real Estate. And then we have an Instagram, so you can follow Living in Greenville. So each space is actually a period. And that's got good content just as far as things that are going on around town. It's different content than the YouTube channel. And then, I'm at William Cohn Jr. on Instagram.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
And providing a little bit of value.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.